Your turn, Yugi boy.
What is up, guys? This is AlintheaYoh coming at you with a card discussion today and kind of a debunking video of the brand new pot card that has come out in the Dark Illusions. That is Pot of Desires. So Pot of Desires is basically a card, a spell card that says banish 10 face down cards from the top of your deck to draw 2 cards. Now the OCG has been pretty happy with this card. A lot of the decks have been using it and they have bumped up a couple of their deck numbers from 40 to 45 and all this stuff to enable them to be able to get cards that they need and not banish everything that they want. Now, a quick ruling: face down cards can't really be interacted with when they're banished. If you banish a card that gets an effect when it's banished, then you will get it. But since it's face down, the card is unknown, so therefore it's not public knowledge, so therefore you don't get the effect. However, cards like Cyphrome Omega and Necroface, to name some, they can interact with those banished cards by either putting them into the graveyard or into the deck respectively. That's a very important thing to note because obviously Konami even said it on their blog that you can use Necroface and Cyphrome Omega, so there should be no worries about that ruling. But I just want to talk about it because it's an interesting card and a really weird one at that, and I actually don't like it. So the card in essence is kind of weird because drawing 2 is always good. Yu-Gi-Oh players in this game have an obsession about drawing cards. If they can draw cards, even with obscene costs, they will. Now this is one card that has actually split the community quite heavily, pretty much down the middle, about people who really love the card and think it's absolutely amazing, and then on the other side who think it's absolutely trash and they don't want to play it at all because banishing 10 is a ridiculous cost. I just want to say, if the cards were banished face up, then this card would be the most broken thing in the world. So starting us off, the good points. The good point is you thin your deck and draw 2 cards. That's pretty much the good point. That's the whole point of the card. And depending on what type of deck you're running, you might be able to interact with those cards if you can make Omegas and if you can summon out your Necroface. But the downside to this is very heavy. The key decks that this card can play in is basically decks that don't require too many combo pieces. Decks that just pretty much function on their own, or they have a lot of different cards that can function in the same way. Things like Blue Eyes is a pretty good one. Or decks that can kind of revolve around just banishing 10 and it won't be too bad. If we look towards the future, what decks can play it? So the decks that can play are decks I said earlier that interact with their banish zone in the way of Omega and Necroface. Shinran Yuis are a pretty good one because they simply interact with the graveyard, they can interact with the banish zone, they can easily get Omegas out, they can pump them out very quickly. So that's a pretty good one, or any zombie deck like that. There are a couple of others, but again, it completely depends because people just throw the card in anyway. And you play 1, 2 or 3. A lot of people are playing 3, OCG play 3, but now I've seen a trend where they've started to cut it down to 2 desires. And I think that if you're going to run desires, 2 is the best way to run it because at least then, even if you resolve 3 of them, you've not banished 30 cards from your deck and you've probably decked out by that point. But let's go into some of the mathematics and probability of this card because I think that's wherein lies the interesting aspects of it. So the chances of banishing any one copy of any one card is about 28% of probability. So that is the chances of basically banishing one card that you may need. There's a 28% chance that you're actually going to banish it due to the effect of Pot of Desires. If you play multiple copies of that card, the chances of banishing 2 of them in that 10 mil is 7%, and then if you banish all 3 of them in that one banish, it is about 1.83%. Probability calculators are good. But then if you go second and activate the card, the percentages rise up ever so slightly. Banishing 1 copy is 29%, banishing 2 copies is 8%, and then banishing 3 copies of each card is just over 2%. The mathematics are pretty solid in there, but then there is one thing that these problematic figures don't take into account, and that is the account of 2 things. 1, how you shuffle your deck. Each person shuffles their deck differently, and while you might say it is a randomization of shuffling, not every shuffling technique is very random and different. A lot of the ways that you can do it, if you pile shuffle, it can spread them out evenly, but depending on how many piles you do, and then if you collect them all together in different certain ways and then shuffle it up in a certain way, then cards can still stick together. You also have things of certain rarities, either rising or falling to the top or bottom of the deck. Depending on that, your probability might go up or go down. And then the one big factor, the one thing that everyone knows, is the luck factor. If you don't get lucky and you have banished all of those cards, then you're just screwed. Because at the end of the day, it's down to luck. This is what the card is basically based on. It is your luck values. Anyone can say, oh well, I have a % chance of getting this and I have a % chance of getting that. But unfortunately, in this game, in my opinion, and due to the way people shuffle and the way that the cards maneuver around in the deck, it's just down to luck. You can get super lucky and draw those 2 cards that you need, or you can basically get the worst luck and banish everything that you need and end up drawing a Garnet because you're playing a Brilliant Fusion Engine. Overall, I personally don't like the cards. I play a lot of combo heavy decks. If I put it in my School Servants, for example, I activate it and banish my White Princes before I've even gotten them off. I have so many dead cards in my deck and I cannot function without it. Sure, I can put it back in the graveyard with Omega, but then I have to somehow get it out of the graveyard and interact with the card again before I can get the effects off. And the chances of drawing the Skull Servant or Lady in the White before that happens is pretty astronomical. It needs to go in a deck like Blue Eyes. I think it's probably in Blue Eyes the best one, just because while you do have combo pieces in like your Blue Eyes White Dragons and such, I think that the deck is strong enough to be able to withstand getting rid of 10 and still being able to function. But only 2 of them, because why are you going to play cards that basically will deck you out? If you look at it, if you resolve 3 cards of Demise, you have gone through 36 cards. That is 10 banished cards per pot of desires, and that's 2 drawn cards. So that's 12 times 3 is 36. So it's just a bit of a crazy one, because even if you go first and resolve all 3 of them, you've decked out. If you're playing a 40 card deck, of course. That is why some people might run 43 or 46 or whatever. It's down to them. But I still think 2 is a good number. So I want to know what you guys think of Pot of Desires. Do you think it is a very good card, or do you just think it's meh? After its initial release on my initial video that I did on it, apologies for doing the second upload on another card, on the same card, but I didn't think you would mind too much. This has just been debunking it a little bit and giving some statistics about how you're drawing the cards and what cards you're trying to target. So as I said, I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think of the cards. Make sure to give me a like, comment, subscribe, and I should catch you guys later.